Are you sometimes overwhelmed by the news and the moral dilemmas and changes in modern medicine that now confront us each day? Our host, Brian Johnston, has been a teacher at every academic level, from adult education and junior college down through high school, junior high, and even 5th and 6th grade. As is so often the case with teachers, he has also coached. Many on the California pro-life team call him the Life Coach. Today, you'll find out why on Life Matters. And now here's our host, Brian Johnston.
Welcome back to Life Matters. We're your program on the right to life, on the culture that has emanated from that singular idea. And there's an entire culture of freedom and creativity that springs from the idea that human beings are unique, that they have intrinsic value and worth, each and every individual, and that worth comes from a creator, not from the government. And yet the government does have a duty to protect the lives of vulnerable individuals. Those lives are entrusted to the protection of the government, so it's got a job to do. That's what the right to life is about. It's a very important idea at the basis of our society, and it's what's guaranteed our individual freedoms. That's why we're free in our person, papers, and property. We're free to bear arms because human beings' lives are valuable, and they are what must be protected first and foremost. But as you know, there's a battle of ideas regarding the right to life. There's a lot of confusion being spread. There's a lot of misguided notions about what's at stake. And if you don't understand this battle, if you aren't prepared in this battle, then lives really will be lost. See, it's not just a metaphor that it's a battle. It's a very real battle. And when the wrong ideas are put into law, lives can be lost. But if the right ideas are in law, lives can be protected. So that's what this battle is about. We're going to talk today about the ongoing coronavirus issue. We've done 3 previous programs, and we've had some requests to go a little bit deeper. This will be our 4th one. If you're listening in to Life Matters on your local station, listen in every week at this time. We come on at different times throughout the state, but listen in at this time on this station. And if you'd like, you can go to our podcast where we record each one. Each program has a very specific focus because we want to equip you for the battle of ideas. And again, you've got to saddle up in this battle because what's at stake are human lives, including your own. And so we will talk about your own life, but we're doing that now in the era of coronavirus in the same way that in any difficult situation, you've got to protect your own life first. Just like on the airplane, when the oxygen masks drop, that means something's wrong. But the first thing you have to do is protect yourself so that you then can protect others. You get that oxygen first so that if you have a vulnerable individual near you, you're able to help them because you're alive. So that's a duty we have to make sure that we're protected. We're going to dwell on that. We're going to have some medical professionals on, an interview with a physician that's going to explain some of the medical principles about protecting yourself. And what I'm fascinated by, and if you know or have listened to the previous programs, that are apparently treatments available that are curative and dynamic. I don't know why the pop media has been trying to silence and suppress that. It's of concern to me. And it's also of concern to me that we're living in fear. I'll be perfectly honest with you. There's something wrong with that in my worldview, that when there's something serious, if you live in fear, you're going to be less able to address it. I'm not saying don't obey the authorities. I'm not saying that at all. But what I'm saying is that there's sometimes better ways to approach it, and we're going to talk about that today on Life Matters. We'll talk a little bit of science. If you've listened before, you know I'm a big fan of science. And if you're nervous about science, again, I have some Christian friends that say, I don't like science. The reason you don't like science is it's often used rhetorically against you. But in point of fact, if you are a Christian, you should actually be the one using science because the facts are on our side. The problem is we're not often trained in how to deal with those facts, in how to help people come to their senses, because you have objective facts on your side. And what science is literally, it's a Greek word, skio, to know. It's knowledge. And you need to learn how to use knowledge aright. So don't be afraid of science. Science in and of itself does not bring with it moral qualities, but it's the persons who employ it. Science can be used for great evil, or science can be used for great good. So don't be afraid of science. It's merely a tool. It's like a toolbox in your garage. It's a tool of knowledge. And there's ways to get to that knowledge. And again, I want to encourage you. We are heard on some Christian stations. I want to encourage you to study to show yourself approved. Be willing to understand what knowledge is and science is. It's really based on the fact that we live in an ordered universe. If the universe didn't have order, and you know that our Creator is the one that gave the universe order, if there wasn't order, then science would be invalid. An observation that I have on one part of the planet, well, they may not apply at another part of the planet if we lived in a disordered and confused universe. It's the fact that there is order to the universe that allows science to have any validity. So if anything, it is Christians that should be masters of science and not afraid of it. So I just want to encourage you in that. Don't be afraid of that. And I'm not picking on my Christian friends. I'm just asserting that that's an objective truth. The right to life is based in self-evident truths. And that's what our founders were putting forward. You can know what the best form of government is. And that's what they literally were saying. They were forming a new form of government. They had observed history. They had observed what had been accomplished in Europe, and perhaps worse, what had been abused. They wanted to have a more just government. And they fought for that, and they based it on the fact that you can know. There are self-evident truths that aren't personal. There are objective truths about what a just government is. And that's what they were pursuing. So we're going to talk about how that applies to the coronavirus. Yes, one more time. So again, on podcast, this is our 4th podcast, and it's a little bit deeper into the science of protecting yourself. When we come back, I'll tell you some personal stories, how I protect myself all the time, and to be honest, how you do all the time. And you don't go around in fear. And you don't go around avoiding people. That's not necessarily going to be our answer. Our answer is literally how you're designed. And you've been designed with some of the best defenses against many viruses, not just the coronavirus. The problem is we've abused our designs. And we'll talk about that and your immune system personally and what you can do about it. And we'll have a little science, medical science lesson from MedCram, a wonderful doctor's website, but really normal people can listen and learn too. So we'll be back. We'll talk science. We'll talk about protecting yourself first and foremost, not walking in fear in the coronavirus era, and moving forward to protect the lives of others, because that's one of our responsibilities. The right to life is about protecting not just my own life, but making sure that the law protects the lives of other individual human beings.
Life Matters continues after this.
Well, hi. I just wanted to thank you for joining me. You know, I have good friends, children, young adults, and adults that have Down syndrome. And they are so loved. Their parents love them so much because they're the happiest people you'd ever want to know. I really love them. I'm going to tell you something, though, that's rather frightening. The government of France has now prohibited showing positive images of Down syndrome children and letting parents know how lovable they are. That's an actual law in France. Here in the U.S., 80-some-odd% of Down syndrome kids are killed by abortion before they're born. In France, it's 96%. So we're not a whole lot better. If you'd like to help out, you can go to the National Down Syndrome Society, ndss.org, to help out. That's ndss.org. We really are in a battle of ideas, and lives really are at stake.
And now back to more Life Matters with Brian Johnston.
Okay, well, we're back. As I said, we're going to talk, hopefully for one last time, on what you should know and do in the coronavirus age and era. We're talking about the right to life. And it's a critically important principle. That's why this program exists, is to take a deep dive into understanding it. And one of the principles in life is protecting your own life. And in the era of coronavirus, I strongly recommend you not look to avoidance as your only preventative. You actually have built-in preventatives in your system, your immune system. So you can wear gloves and masks, of course. Those are designed to protect you against this invisible enemy. But more to the fact, you already have a protection system that's known as your immune system. You already know if you're immunodeficient in any way, if you're older and your immune system is impaired, it's not good. This is not good. You want to make sure your immune system is better. There's things you can do about that. You're older than you were. I'm older than I was. That means I need to pay more attention to my immune system. I'll give you some ideas how to do that. As I said, I've been around this for a while, dealing with the elderly and dealing with the issue of vulnerable seniors, and there's things that you can do. But more to the point, just in everyday life, there's things that you do. I'll be honest, we talked about oxygen at altitude, and if something's wrong with that airplane, you just don't try to avoid it. There are things you can do to prevent yourself dying. Oxygen masks drop down. Your first duty is to protect your life first, and then you can get the mask on someone else. I personally have very, very fair skin because I'm a Celt. My folks are from Ireland, and in my family, sunburn and skin cancer is not uncommon. I actually have some distant members of my family who refuse to go into the sun. That's their answer. They stay indoors all the time. They live in fear of sunlight. And maybe there's something to be said about that, but it has greatly hampered their life. They now can't go into the sun. They're almost albinic. It's an answer, and apparently that's an answer we're told must be approached towards coronavirus, but I assure you it's not the only answer. We're going to talk about some better answers and medical answers in just a little bit. But avoidance isn't your only answer. There's protections. And as you know, you're being told if you do go out, wear a mask. If you do go out, make sure you wash. Make sure you're paying attention to where the virus might be. You know, that's not enough. And what you really need to do is make sure that you're not immunodeficient. That's essential. So if you're overweight, not good. You should be fighting the fight. I have to fight the fight. I'm like you. I'm not naturally skinny, so I'm always working, make sure that I'm healthy. Make sure you're getting enough rest. Make sure you get some sunlight, that vitamin D3 naturally instead of in the form of a supplement. That does help you. But let me go more deeply into this. The fact is that your immune system has some very specific tools that I'm going to focus on. And when it comes to coronavirus, there have been studies, we've mentioned this in other programs, apparently very dynamic effect from chloroquine. Now, when I refer to chloroquine, we're referring specifically to the studies that the president offered, which indicate hope in France. These studies are compelling. Yet the media, for some reason, and the Democrat Party, and those who want to control other people have attacked intentionally the president. But he is citing scientifically observable fact. There are other chloroquines, like chloroquine phosphate, that's used to clean fish tanks, and someone errantly used that, and it harmed them. They used that episode to condemn what the president is saying. That isn't what he said. Other people have used other forms of chloroquine, and they want to use that to condemn the president, citing that study. But that study brings hope. And I'm deeply concerned that because the president mentioned it, they feel an obligation to attack it. Apparently, Governor Cuomo is refusing to distribute it, basically because the president has offered hope about this drug. That's alarming. Quinine came about years ago in the 30s. Then in the 1960s, they found it wasn't just good against malaria. They used it against viruses. And if you look at the studies that were done against viruses, chloroquine has a very different method of attacking viruses than it does against malaria. And all that it doesn't kill the virus. It simply allows zinc to enter your cell. It's in your cells that the viruses are replicating and creating false proteins. Your cells create their own proteins, but when the virus gets in there, it starts going haywire and destroying your body. What zinc does is zinc prevents your virus from replicating. If you have that virus the zinc stops it from replicating. Now, there have been many studies, and when you go to the podcast, if you're listening on podcast, there's notes that are attached to every podcast. I will link to those studies, and those studies are very clear in explaining why chloroquine is not what kills the virus. It simply allows, it's what's known as an ionophore. It allows the zinc to travel through the membrane of your cell, and it's the zinc that kills the virus. Now, I'm telling you this because there's things you can do right now to ensure your body is high in zinc. And I'm not saying that zinc is the magic cure. I'm not asserting that. I am going to have you listen in just a moment to a medical doctor. And again, this is a program. You can get it online. It's called MedCram. Anybody who's been to medical school actually had to cram. That's right. Cramming refers to preparing for your tests. You have to get all that information, all the essentials down and mastered. Anybody who's been to law school had to cram. Anybody who's been to high school had to cram. In fact, often in grade school, if you had an arduous test, you learned how to cram. And if you didn't, you probably didn't do very well because there's a lot of knowledge that you've got to regurgitate. Some people keep that knowledge, other people don't. But cramming is the process of getting all that knowledge in. And there's a website called MedCram. And I want you to listen just for a little bit to Dr. Saholt, and he is quite incisive. This is from a much longer program on the coronavirus itself and how it operates. I won't bore you with that. There are a lot of polysyllabic Latinate terms. By the way, don't be afraid of big words. I talked to you earlier. Please don't be afraid of science. And sometimes you hear words, I don't know what that word means. You know what I do? I do what I was taught as a child. If there's a big word you don't understand, you look it up. But what's even easier sometimes is you take it apart, break it down into syllables. The syllables typically have meanings, and typically the bigger words are made of smaller words. Some languages use that a lot. Latin uses it a lot. Greek, German is very famous for putting smaller words into bigger words. It's called calquing. But don't worry about that. What you should worry about, if there's a word you don't understand, don't say, I don't know, I feel stupid. That's a good thing, by the way. If you feel stupid, let that motivate you. If you say, I'm foolish, I don't know, what a good starting point. Because now you're going to be motivated to know. So don't be afraid of learning new things. And I promise you, God will help you if you want to know truth. He wants everyone to know truth. And I'm not going to get preachy on you. That's just objective reality. If you want to know what's true and you go looking for it, that's the beginning of wisdom. So without further ado, I'm going to give you just about a minute and a half discussion of specifically how chloroquine works against the coronavirus, but really most importantly, the conclusion that Dr. Saholt comes to. And that is the zinc ions getting into the cell, and specifically that just taking zinc tablets, that's not the cure that's being suggested. But what's clearly being suggested is if you have a zinc deficiency, you don't want to be zinc deficient. That's the number one message he has. And I believe there's great significance to that. Listen in.
So in summary, what they found was that the combination of zinc ions and then a way to get those zinc ions into the cell with a zinc ionophore PT effectively inhibits nidovirus replication in cell culture. This may be a novel solution for inhibiting the RD-RPS of SARS-CoV in the future. Of course, the issue is how do you get the zinc into the cells? This is a really far cry to saying that just taking zinc lozenges is going to protect you from having coronavirus, because as we know, there are no randomized trials looking at zinc in coronavirus, especially the current one, because there are no randomized trials involved with this coronavirus at all. So can we say that taking zinc supplements is going to help you with coronavirus? No, we can't say that. We can't say what the appropriate dose is. We can't even say that taking oral zinc is going to increase your intracellular concentration of zinc. But we can say that if you're deficient in zinc, then you're probably going to be deficient intracellularly. And so it behooves you to make sure that you're not deficient in zinc.
Life Matters continues after this.
California Pro-Life is looking for folks like you to help us bring common sense back to our state. Would you like to volunteer? For example, do you like social media? You could help. Or do you like to put on parties? You might have the skills to help us with one of our local events. Would you like to just encourage local pro-lifers with insights and information? Join one of our chapters. There's a lot to do in this state, and your help can make a difference right where you are. Go to California Pro-Life and sign up.
Do you hear that sound? That's the sound of a child's heart beating. It can be measured as early as 16 days after conception when mom, she may not even know she's pregnant yet. And yet that unique human life, that boy or girl, has his or her own blood supply and circulatory system dependent on mom. The facts are on our side, and facts are terrible things to waste.
California Pro-Life is dedicated to winning California back for life. For more information, go to californiaprolife.org. And now back to more Life Matters with Brian Johnston.
We're back, and you're listening to Life Matters. So let me repeat that conclusion from Dr. Sahalt. It behooves you to make sure that you are not deficient in zinc, because it's the presence and the overwhelming presence of zinc intercellularly that then the chloroquine allows that zinc to get through your cell walls. The zinc kills the virus and has killed many, many viruses, and has since the 1960s when it was first studied that way. That's the reason that the French study started. They know that zinc has been used against other coronaviruses. It's been proven against SARS. It's been proven against the most common coronavirus you know about, the common cold. So do boost your immune system, vitamin D3, vitamin C in large quantities. But in particular, zinc in quantity, I personally prefer using a nasal swab if I can, because that gets it directly to the mucous membranes, and it's the mucous membranes where your battle really begins. It's through mucous membranes that viruses are transmitted. That's why you're not supposed to touch your nose, eyes, and mouth, because you don't want that virus going into your mucous membrane. And so those mucous membranes, if you have zinc there, it's killed other coronaviruses, my friend. And you'll see that in the studies, if you go to the podcast, these are peer-reviewed studies, and several, but there's dozens, of the efficacy of zinc. And then specifically what we know about chloroquine is that it allows this to be an ionophore of zinc. That means it allows it to travel through the cell wall, and then the zinc is what kills the virus. So that's basic science. I hope I didn't use any really big words. Don't be afraid of studying these things. You can learn. Don't think you can't learn. No matter how old you are, no matter how limited your vocabulary, you can increase your vocabulary. You can increase your learning. We have a duty to do that, by the way. If you're part of the Right to Life movement in any way, that's your job, is to spread what's true about that child in the womb. There's objective scientific facts about that child that people don't know. There's objective scientific facts about the law regarding that child. That same child in the womb can inherit property and yet be killed. That same child in the womb, we know, in any other environment, you kill that child, you can go to prison. We know that Scott Peterson sits in prison for a dual homicide here in California. So why is this child protected? Well, that's an objective fact of the law, and there's objective facts of medical science regarding the child in the womb. And the right to life is dependent on you studying and knowing the truth and letting other people know that. The culture has been dumbed down. Our culture has become a dysfunctional culture. But I want to remind you, you can change that. You can at least change it in your own life. So now, dealing with coronavirus, do go ahead, and if you have a chance to go to lifematters.life, go ahead and look at the notes section. There's numerous studies. They are rather in-depth and polysyllabic and written in medical journal-ese, but they won't be hard to understand if you take some time with them. That the efficacy of zinc salts in particular, back in the 80s, there was a very similar virus that had struck in Africa, and particularly children, and the use of zinc salts was proven 100% effective in killing that virus. That's pretty effective. So, again, I'm not saying that I'm a doctor. I'm no doctor. But I do play one on television. No. But the fact is the facts are there. And facts are terrible things to waste. So make sure that you dig into these facts. Make sure you protect yourself and your family. Make sure you don't walk in fear. If in your town I was surprised and stunned at the nature of some government decision, someone said that in Riverside County, California, that you'll be arrested if you don't wear a mask in public. Well, that's pretty severe. Do obey the authorities, but I have to tell you, there's things more protective than your mask. And if you're not getting the virus, then you're in a much better condition. That's what's going to bring down that curve. That's what's going to bring down the deaths. That's what's going to bring us to the place where we can live somewhat normal lives. So make sure you're looking at the facts regarding this. Make sure your own immune system is protected. And I'm hoping now in future programs, we won't just obsess over the coronavirus. Again, this has been an incredible moment in human history that the whole world has stopped. And it's because of this one illness. And yet there's so many implications. We've spoken before. Again, if you want to go back, we've spoken about the risks now, because when it comes to the right to life, some people have proposed just being rid of people that are ill with the coronavirus. That's an answer. Well, that violates the right to life, my friend. Don't be talked into that worldview. Some people basically want to use this as an opportunity to control the lives of others and to measure which lives are more valuable than others. Very dangerous. We talked about that in episode 213. Very, very dangerous premise, and yet it's very common in our culture. That's what's done in abortion. That's what's done in many forms of euthanasia. Well, they're really sick, so we must be compassionate. And they'll offer emotional feelings as logic and as moral and ethical logic in order to have them killed. And if you're not aware of that kind of, quote, thinking, that's not thinking. That's an appeal to emotions, and rather base emotions. You better be ready in this battle. Our job here on Life Matters is to focus deeply on this right to life. What is it? And how can we address it? We want you effective in the right to life. We want to restore the right to life. And we see that coming. That's the basis of America's freedoms, is the value of the human person. It's a wonderful gift that we've been given in America, and it's a wonderful privilege to stand up for it. Please do.
To follow Life Matters on all social media and to subscribe to the Life Matters podcast, go to lifematters.life, where you will find everything you need to know to share life, culture, and the battle of ideas with everyone you care about. Life Matters is a production of the California Pro-Life Council, the state affiliate of National Right to Life.